Another question too, kind of a big story right now is Kyler Murray. He's been all over the news recently with him unfollowing the Cardinals. I guess he's unhappy. There was a rumor, I think I saw it on Reddit, so it's not exactly true, but after losing to the Rams, he said he was done. And I'm not sure if that means he was done with playing football or done with the Cardinals or just done with that game overall. But what do you guys think of the whole Kyler Murray situation?
Ethan, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, sure. I personally, whether it's the right answer or the wrong answer, I think he should just cut his losses and go play baseball. He was a very he was a very high draft pick in Major League Baseball. He would get paid so much money to go play for the A's. They still technically own his rights, I believe, since they were the team that drafted him. So he could immediately step away from this whole situation with football if he's really not all that into it. Now, do I think that's the case? I'd say it's really hard to be the number one overall pick and a starting quarterback of a franchise in the NFL and not love the game of football. So I think that more than anything else, this is just a guy who's disgruntled and pissed because, like, put yourself in his shoes, right? You're this franchise quarterback who basically got brought into this organization that was drafting first overall, brand new head coach, changing of the guard. Like, now you are supposed to be the savior coming in, this dynamic quarterback that's going to change everything for our franchise. And granted, in his first couple of years being their quarterback, they've won games a lot more than people expected. He's been a very phenomenal quarterback when he's healthy. And so I think that the biggest issue is that when he got hurt this year, him underperforming made a lot of the backlash be towards him being, oh, Kyler Murray's bad. Kyler Murray's poor play is the reason the Cardinals didn't reach their full potential this year. And granted, much of that could be agreed upon. But I would say that putting all that pressure on him, if I were in his shoes, I'd be pissed off too. I'd be pretty pissed off at my organization kind of using me as a scapegoat rather than being like, hey, don't listen to the noise. We are behind you 100%. You're our guy. We're going to win a championship with you as our QB. And if he really doesn't feel like that's the case and those feelings are reciprocated by both parties in this situation, go play baseball, dude. You'll have just as much success, in my opinion. That's what I think.
Him and our other co-host, Mike, brought this up in our last podcast. I totally forgot they said it. It shocked me again because it's just like no one watches baseball and no one cares about baseball. You haven't played baseball in 3 years. I think it's kind of a leap to be like, stop doing what you're doing professionally at a very high level and do something that is like more of a pipe dream than anything. Like, he's extremely fast, but like, I don't know, man. He's 24. I'd give it more than 3 seasons. Also, Kliff Kingsbury could do a little bit more to help him out. The guy looks lost on the sideline.
Yeah.
No better example than the first round game against the Rams. Like, Sean McVay had his struggles this playoffs, but Kliff just got outclassed. And I'm worried that if that continues to be the marriage, that Kyler, whether it's like a lack of height or, ability to do adjust in game himself, paired with Kliff Kingsbury inability to adjust, is just kind of going to be a disaster 11-6 and out of the playoffs in the first round type team every season.
Well, to really like simplify the bones of my thought, it's kind of more like, if I'm Kyler Murray, am I going to get an extension on a contract in the NFL where it's like 5 years, whatever they're going to give me, let's say like 5 years, $100 million.
But it's going to be like,
it's going to be way. I know. We're just saying a random number though, right? Like, it's not in hindsight, it's not that great. Whereas like in Major League Baseball, you can go, and if you play one phenomenal season, you can get a 10-year contract worth like $350 million or something crazy like that, like $400 million over 10 years, where sure, you're committed to playing for a team in a 10-year span, but you're also playing a non-contact sport where risk of injury is mitigated and you can make just as much, if not more money. And it doesn't matter how much viewing there is for Major League Baseball. Like, no matter what, as many fans of sports will be like, baseball is boring. Oh my God. Baseball draws. It makes money. They always have a fan base. I don't think it's America's pastime really anymore, but at the same time, it will always have a market and ability to sell. So there's always going to be money for these players. And I think that it would be a really low risk, high reward situation for him if he were to choose it. But JJ, what do you think? Less about the baseball aspect of Kyler Murray, but what do you think he should do about his situation? You think that he needs to stay in Arizona and they need to try to mend this relationship? Do you think that he tries to find his way out? What do you think the solution should be?
Well, I think I kind of see both of your arguments here. Yes, baseball doesn't get as much hype or doesn't get as much viewership as the NFL or the NBA. But if it's a postseason game, that's where majority of the viewership from baseball comes from, because like hockey too is the same way. It's all right in the regular season, but when it comes down to the postseason, that's where it's at. But you also talked about too, with Kyler Murray, he can make almost as much money as a quarterback. But with him, if he gets a 10-year, $300 million contract in baseball, he's going to have less pressure and not as many people are going to be dependent on him. Like, you have to win a World Series, right? With the quarterback, if you get paid that much, you have to win a Super Bowl. In baseball, I mean, you can look at a guy like Mike Trout. He signed that massive contract. He barely made the play. I don't think he's ever won a playoff game in the series and stuff like. Same thing with Bryce Harper. He signed that massive contract with Philly, yet to make the playoffs. So there's less pressure, but altogether, I think this is just a smokescreen, and eventually this will all be mended out. I say that a lot of times, and normally it doesn't happen, but I just can't see him leaving this year. I think you have to at least give him one more year. I think the Cardinals should pay him, but they're probably going to wait another year. I don't know if Kliff Kingsbury is that great of a coach. I mean, you look at what he did at Texas Tech, he got fired and then somehow was promoted to a head coach in the NFL. So I think that was kind of the downside of the Cardinals. I really don't know if Kingsbury is the answer, but I do think Murray is. And I just think that you need to give one more year. But the Cardinals are kind of a strange team too, because the last 2 years or last 3 years, they've started off really hot and then they've cooled down significantly toward the end of the season. So that might be Kingsbury himself. And probably a little bit of that is Murray, but that could mostly be Kliff Kingsbury. And, if next year doesn't work out, then I would probably say get a new head coach, because of course Kingsbury is going to be on the hot seat with what the Cardinals did last offseason. They signed JJ Watt. They traded for DeAndre Hopkins 2 years ago. I think he's going to be in the hot seat. And if he doesn't win another playoff game, they're in trouble. But I think you just need to give one more year. But we'll see what happens with Arizona, because we still have an offseason left to go as well.